Welcome to Keycloak of Code. I'm happy to have you all here today. My name is Alexander Schwartz, and today we'll have a guest. We have Nico talking about Keycloak test containers. Let's welcome Nico on stage.
Hi, Alexander. Nice to see you.
Hey, great. Good to have you here. So you've been quite busy in the Keycloak community, right?
Yeah, I think some of our listeners all already know me from my YouTube channel or some forums like the Discourse forum and the Keycloak Dev Day conference. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think on the Keycloak forum, Discourse forum, you've been there active for quite a while. Thank you very much for doing all that service to the community.
You're welcome.
And yeah, I'm looking forward quite a lot to the Keycloak Dev Day. Time is ticking.
Yeah. One week and a few days.
Yeah.
Next day, Thursday.
Cool.
Next week, Thursday. Yeah.
All right. So let's get started. What did you bring us today?
I bring you my Keycloak Testcontainers module for being able to have a Keycloak server running in your integration tests. Mainly, I started this project 5.5 years ago, I think, mainly for having a test container, a Keycloak container in the tests for doing some kind of authentication. But yeah, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, I'm using this most often for testing my extensions. When I'm writing Keycloak extensions, I will have to test them, and testing Keycloak extensions can quite be cumbersome when you want to mock everything and you end up testing your mock, but that's not what you want to test. You want to test your extensions. And yeah, a Keycloak test container can be a way to achieve this, to have a real Keycloak server running and test your extensions like a black box test in your container, in your Keycloak server.
Great. So you built it for your own needs and then shared it with the community. That's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, of course.
Good. So let's dive in. I hear that you have some presentations for us. I think the plan is going to be like using half of the hour for a little introduction, and
Yep.
then we dive in with questions and maybe even have questions in between. So let's get the slides on screen as well.
Okay.
And the stage is yours. I will handle the chat, and the people in the chat, please drop in questions. Maybe also tell us from where you're joining today. And looking forward to this one.
Okay. Thanks, Alexander. Yeah. Welcome, everybody, again from my side. I'm Nico, and as already said, some of you might know me from YouTube. So being on YouTube Live is a kind of a first for me. Not really a first, but it's not that often that I'm live on YouTube. So my YouTube channel, I'm recording my videos and publish them later on. And yeah, that's it. Okay. That's about me. I'm a freelance consultant, architect, developer, whatever you call me, and I'm working with Keycloak since 10 years now. I started at version 1.1 or 1.2, and yeah, currently I'm focusing solely on Keycloak. So my daily work is 100% Keycloak, doing consultancy, giving trainings, writing extensions, and all this stuff. And yeah, I'm one of the organizers of the Keycloak Dev Day conference, a one-day conference, which is taking place next week on Thursday in Darmstadt, nearby Frankfurt in Germany. So if you don't have a ticket yet, we're completely sold out. You won't get any of the tickets, unfortunately. We're about 170 people live in person in Darmstadt, meeting and talking all the day about Keycloak, having speakers and attendees from all over Europe. And yeah, hopefully we're growing, and next year we'll make it even bigger. And yeah, I think my co-organizer Sebastian Rose is also in the live stream, hopefully, or listening at least. You already saw Sebastian in the last hour of code. He prepared with you the things you have to do for the hackathon, which is taking place one day before the Dev Day conference. And yeah. Okay, let's start. That's enough about me. You don't need to know that I wrote a book some years ago. It's completely uninteresting. Serverless computing, totally overrated. No, it isn't, but yeah. Little bit about a few links about me, and yeah, I think all this stuff is Alexander putting to the video description after the recording has finished. And let's dig into the stuff about the Keycloak test containers. It's about not that early this time. It's about being late. This is the repository of the Keycloak test containers module. So the test containers project itself is a project of having unit tests with real dependencies. And this is a project which started a few years ago, and I talked with some guys about the test containers in 2019, and if it's interesting to have the Keycloak test container, they say yeah, might be interesting, and then I discussed a little bit if we make it as a official module or a community module, and then we decided to have it as a community module, and since then I'm maintaining this project. And the test containers itself started with the approach to have a real system as a dependency in your test, so that you don't rely on a common used external system, which may be wrong configured, or maybe may have a defect when executing your test, and then your tests will fail, but your tests are actually all correct, and they fail only because the external system is not available or has some errors. And that's where the test containers jump in and giving you real dependencies, real systems as a resource in your unit tests or integration tests. And you see already there are a lot of modules, and there are 50 plus modules from the community or from the team itself. And here we have the Keycloak container. The Keycloak container itself, it's available for different languages, for Java, for Go, for .NET, or for Python. So I only am responsible for the Java test container. That's my dependency. The other Keycloak containers are maintained by other people, and depending on these projects, the feature set is more or less the same than my feature set of my Keycloak test containers module. Yeah, let's dig into the Keycloak test container. What it is and how it works. If you want to write a Keycloak test, just specify the Keycloak test container in your tests with the add container annotation. That's a annotation from the test containers framework. That's not an annotation from me. That's an annotation from the test containers framework. I'm only responsible for the Keycloak container, and you just instantiate a new Keycloak container instance. You can use your custom images if you want to, or different versions of Keycloak if you want to. The default versions of Keycloak are always the most recent version. So the recent Keycloak container library version is always using the most recent Keycloak container version. Never latest, because the latest is a moving target and you can't rely on latest, but always on some minor version. And yeah, then you configure your container. You can configure a default admin or username. If you don't configure one, the famous combination of admin as username and password is used. But you can also configure your custom username and password. You can import some pre-configured realm or realms If you have multiple realms, you can also import multiple realms. Also, this is possible. We'll also see everything later on in a real live test, just skipping through the documentation to give you a rough idea what you can do with all this stuff. You can disable the Bootstrap admin so that you don't, I think that's the wrong part of the documentation. We have to put it up. You can skip the bootstrapping of an administrator if you have a pre-configured realm with an administrator user configured. You can just disable the Bootstrap admin. And yeah, some more features. And also I'm providing a Keycloak admin client directly from the container, so you don't have to implement that yourself. You can just call the method get Keycloak admin client, and then you get an admin client to the container, to your actual test container, so that you can call all the admin API resources directly from your test code. And some helper methods for getting the auth server URL. This is really important if you want to access the Keycloak server and you don't know the port number, because Keycloak test containers, or test containers in general, use a random available port on your machine, so you don't have to care about if your used port is available on every environment. The Keycloak test container is starting on the random port, which is available on each machine. And to get the proper URL from outside, you can call the get auth server URL method, and then you will get the current base URL of the Keycloak server with the used port, where you can call it from the outside. And you can craft your custom Keycloak admin client if you don't want to use the built-in one. Actually, the built-in one method, this one here, the Keycloak admin client, is doing exactly this here, calling the Keycloak builder and establishing a connection to the admin CLI client in the master realm with the admin user and admin password. Also, the old legacy context path is supported. The management port is currently supported, and you can switch memory settings. And of course, you can do all the tests with TLS usage, so you can run your tests against Keycloak with certificates. You don't have to rely on HTTP if you want to use if you want to test it against TLS usage or HTTPS usage. Can provide your custom certificate and key files, or use the built-in ones, key store. You can use features and all stuff. You can override default configurations using CLI arguments, as the CLI configuration arguments override the environment variables. And one of the most recent features are starting all this stuff in production mode with the optimized flag. So until version, I don't know if I really released it yet, but in the past, the Keycloak test container was only able to be started in dev mode, and now you can also start Keycloak container in production mode, and also with the optimized flag. And if you use your custom image with optimized flag, then yeah, you can make benefit of a really fast startup time. And yeah, that's the chapter about testing custom extensions. That's what I'm using most of the time, my Keycloak test containers module. So I'm just instantiating a new test Keycloak container, and then I tell the container, hey, use my compiled classes from the target classes directory. And then the container is putting all that stuff into a jar file, loads this jar file into the container, into the providers directory, and then your custom extension is available inside the container, and you can run your tests against this. And also you can use dependencies and third-party libraries inside of the container. All this is possible with the test containers. You can attach a remote debugger to the test container. Also, this is possible. So you see, there's a lot of features inside this test container, and I implemented not all of this, of course. And as you can see here, currently we have 16 contributors to the test containers. All of them are coming from the community, and I'm happy to include your proposals or your pull requests if they extend the Keycloak Testcontainers module in a positive way. And yeah, it's a real community project, and I'm really happy that so many people are using the test containers. As you can see here, used by over 600 other projects. Of course, there are a few small projects, but there are also some really big projects, like Hot.io is using the test containers. And if you scroll through all these dependencies, we will see also Spring Cloud is using the Keycloak test containers. Something from the National Security Agency. I don't know yet if this is a good thing or not, but also we can see that, I don't know where exactly it is. The Keycloak project itself is currently using my test containers. Don't know exactly where it is, but the Keycloak client project is using the test containers. Here it is, Keycloak client is also using the test containers. And yes, I confess I'm a little bit proud of this, that the Keycloak project itself uses my Keycloak test container. So I think I made a pretty awesome work for having these test containers. So let's dig into the code. Enough of theory. Let's see how all this stuff works. Switching to the IDE. This is the project itself. There's the extendable Keycloak container base class having all the logic inside. Everything is configured in here. We don't have to look inside this code currently because, yeah, I think you want to know how all this stuff works, and that's why I'm switching over to my extensions demo. Also, the URL to this repository and the test containers repository, Alexander will publish later on. And let's do a first test. I have a custom extension, a resource provider extending the REST endpoints, and this is a pretty small endpoint. I'm just having some hello endpoint, a public endpoint, and an authenticated endpoint extended for Keycloak, and I want to test this. I have written a test for executing the resource provider, and as you can see, I have here my container defined. I have the test containers annotation at the class levels, also from the test containers project, or test containers JUnit Jupyter, to be able to run it with the Jupyter JUnit 5 framework, the container annotation, defining the Keycloak container, the private static final definition is used for starting the container in a manner like add before all. So when the test class is initialized, the Keycloak container will be started, and after each test is executed, after all tests are executed, all test methods, the test container will be stopped and teared down.
One question, Nico.
Yeah.
Could you tell the audience what a resource provider is? What it actually doing?
The resource provider is actually extending Keycloak with your custom resources, for extending Keycloak with your custom REST endpoints.
Okay, like adding a new REST endpoint that does
adding a new REST endpoint to Keycloak, yes.
Okay, cool stuff.
I'm having a default Keycloak container and extending it with my classes from target classes. Currently, I also could write with default provider classes, and then Keycloak is using the target classes folder by default. And then I have some basic tests based on REST Assured. I'm using REST Assured here for executing my HTTP tests. When I call the hello endpoint with a GET request, then I'm expecting the status code to 100, and I'm expecting that the body is hello master, because I'm executing it on the master realm. And if I do it authenticated way, I first get the access token from the Keycloak admin client. So I'm getting the admin client, then I'm accessing the token manager and getting the access token from the token manager for the administrator. And then I'm sending this access token to the Keycloak server in the request as the OAuth2 bearer token, and calling the authenticated endpoint. And then I'm expecting that the username is admin. Yeah, that's pretty all the tests, and calling the authenticated endpoint unauthenticated with auth token should return 401. All this stuff. We can execute the tests, and then we can have a look to the output of these tests. Now you see the test container framework starts, and the test container framework will start Keycloak itself. There is a container called Ryuk started. This is a management container from the test containers framework, which cares about the lifecycle of the containers. So if your test fails and your Keycloak server does not stop gracefully, the Ryuk container cares about stopping and removing the container so that there is no dangling container hanging around after failing your tests. And yeah, currently the container is started and the test will be executed. It's a little bit slower during screen share than normally, and you can see the regular logs of Keycloak. You can, for example, you can see here Keycloak is recognizing my extensions and giving this annoying warning that I'm implementing internal SPI. I think, Alexander, we talked about this last year already. And then the server is starting, and it started in 21 seconds. That's quite a lot. Normally, when I'm not sharing my screen, when I don't do a live stream, it starts in around 5 seconds. It's pretty much around happening. And then after the Keycloak server is started, the tests will be executed. My tests actually don't have any logout put, so you don't see anything, just having the regular server output here. And yeah, then you can completely run your tests, or if you now change your code. For example, let's use the anonymous endpoint, not returning the name of the realm, but something else, not the name, hello Nico, for example, and then you can execute your test again, and then you will see that one of the tests is failing. So we have to wait another 20 seconds for this. We have to talk a little bit, or if there's a question in between, we can use the time for answering a question. No question, okay. So then let's wait until Keycloak is finished.
There was this question about this thing about the internal SPIs, right, that you mentioned. I answered that probably at Keycloak Dev Day last year.
Yeah.
That's what you had in mind. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of internal SPIs, and they give you the warning that Nico was just talking about. If you want to have any of the SPIs to be a public SPI to want to get away with this warning, it's probably just a matter of creating an issue, getting enough votes on the issue, and then having the maintainers look at it. We might need to. The thing is, all the internal SPIs, they might eventually break without further notice, although we try to avoid it. But yeah, if you have an internal SPI, look if there's already an issue. If there is, give it an upvote. If there isn't, create one. I have a good justification to making it public.
Actually, I'm using it for having confidence that my custom extension is being loaded by Keycloak. So I'm using the warning as an information.
Yeah, that's good.
As you can see, the changed code results in a failed test because we're expecting the master, and now it's returning Nico as I changed the code here and return Nico. So I now could adjust my test, but I'll skip this for now. I think the idea is clear. Let's have a look into some other tests. For example, in my well-known Flintstones user storage provider, this is also a demo implementation of the user storage provider interface, having an external service providing data for users. And I also testing this with the test containers. In this class, again, the test containers annotation to run the test containers test. We have the container itself, and again I have a default test container. Then I'm setting some default environment variables. This is still possible. You can set all the custom environment variables like you want. This is default a method from the test containers itself. That's nothing Keycloak specific. You can set any environment variables like you want, and then this time I gave it 2 provider class locations because I have the custom classes from the Flintstones provider itself, and then I have some util classes from the util module in this project, where some common classes are located. And then I will start this test. I have a before all method where I set up the realm and configuring the storage provider. Everything you would do perhaps manually in the administration UI, or automated through some other tool. And then I have the tests, executing the tests. I'm accessing Keycloak and try to log in with my Fred Flintstone user. And if the login succeeds, I'm checking if the payload of the token has some expected values in it, so that the preferred username is Fred Flintstone, the email is fredflintstone@flintstones.com, and the given and family name are like the expected ones. I think some of you are wondering how I do with the login. I have written some convenience method requesting the token. That's a part of my test base. Basically, I'm doing a password login, so the resource owner password credential grant, or in Keycloak terms, the direct access grant. It's it's the bad grant type. You must not be used. But for testing purposes, it's pretty convenient. And I'm using this often in my tests, but only in the tests, never in production. And with this, I can simulate a login, getting a token for the test, and testing on this information. And I have also written some kind of UI login or UI flow with Rest Assured. That's a bit more extensive because I have to mock all the actions. I'm crafting the login URL manually, putting all the query parameters in it, and then calling it and getting the form URL from the resulting HTML. I have to do some kind of XML query to find the actual login URL to where I have to post the username and password, which I do here in this part. Then I'm expecting a 302 found response with the location header. Then I will call the location header again, and then again pass all the stuff, the form, to update the password. It's a bit more extensive, but yeah, it also works if you want to maintain this kind of code. And of course, we can access also as an administrator this user with the admin client. And it's a regular Keycloak admin instance, and you can call everything on the admin, like you do with the admin CLI, for example, or with a custom Java library, calling the admin API from outside of Keycloak. And then again, we can run all the tests here. This time, all the tests are executed in a fixed order. I annotated all these methods with an order annotation because some of my tests rely on some previously executed tests. Usually, you should not rely on some ordering, only in some special cases, and that's the case in here. And in the background, the Keycloak container starts up again as slow as the previous one. Now it started also in 20 seconds, and then the tests will be executed. And you can see everything is being executed properly. And here you can see some more log output for each log, as I have some debug outputs from the Flintstones storage provider itself and from the API server, which is running in the background, and also having some Keycloak events, as we are just logging in with an inbuilt password here in this test and having the proper event here in the log file. And testing my extensions this way gives me a pretty good confidence after each version update. So I just increased the version number in my test containers and running the tests against my extensions, and also doing the version increase in the extension dependencies. And then yeah, if every test is still green, I have really good confidence that all my extensions are also being able to be executed without errors in the new version. Perhaps there is some runtime changes, but I think 80% of all the changes you can get with some pretty good testing, and only have some runtime issues, some smaller runtime issues afterwards. Most of the time, if your tests are written well, then the better your tests are, the less issues you will have later on in your test or production environment. It can be a little bit hard to test something like authentication flows, because in authentication flows mostly you have some UI interaction, and then you have to use something like Selenium, like Cypress tests or something like that. But that's UI testing. That's a complete different domain. I'm not the best part for writing UI tests. I try to avoid this as much as possible. I'm a big fan of tests, but I really hate UI tests. And that's a pretty quick overview of the test containers module, testing your Keycloak extensions in an integrated way without dependencies to other infrastructure in your environment. Alexander, I think we can switch over to the questions.
Sure. And there have been some. First, thank you very much for the presentation. It was a great overview. You already went quite deep into technical stuff. I bet some people also picking up things about JUnit here today, like ordering tests and using these kind of providers. There was one question on how admin login is done. So I think Francisco asked that question earlier.
Let's go to the get Keycloak admin client method, where you actually get the instance for the administrative client. I simply call a Keycloak get instance with the username, the realm, the admin username, the admin password, admin client, and if I have to use an SSL context or not.
So it's like you choose it at the beginning, right? Or so that when you spin up Keycloak, you choose the username and password at the beginning. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, if you don't specify a username and password explicitly, the defaults admin will be used. And you can specify your custom admin username and password if you spin up your Keycloak container. So let's see where I have some of this with admin here. So here, for example, I can call with admin password or with admin username on the container for having my custom credentials. Or if I don't set custom credentials, the defaults are being used, and these informations are being used when you call get admin client for getting the administrative client.
And I believe if I would, for example, import a realm, that realm would already have maybe an admin password set, and I can also use that one. If I know it.
Yes, the get Keycloak admin client method always uses an administrator, the default administrator from the master realm.
Yeah.
If you want to have your custom realm admin, if you want to
no, sorry, I just meant I could import an existing realm, and then use it.
You can import an existing realm with an administrator. Then you have to, I think it's somewhere in the documentation. If you import a realm with an administrator, you have to disable the bootstrap admin. Otherwise, there will be a conflict. And then you have additionally call with admin username, with admin password on the Keycloak container. And these have to be the same like they are configured in the JSON file.
Oh yeah, good. Okay, understood.
So this is a requirement you have to do. Otherwise, the Keycloak container does not know which admin user to use.
And somebody was asking, well, we've seen a lot of Java today. And
Yeah.
at the beginning, you mentioned that there are several other implementations for other languages. Are they
Yeah.
using it? Is this the same container, or is it and just a different wrapper, or
No,
how does it
there's
work?
completely separate implementations.
Mhm.
They are not relying on my module. So, for example, as you can see here, the Keycloak, the test containers project has some minimal code examples here. And for Go, yes, they are using the same Keycloak container, but it's a container itself. It's not necessarily the same thing. By default, it is here. You can see here that there's a pretty similar methods used because
Yeah, I think the person was looking for Python. If you could switch to the Python tab.
Python. Yeah, the Python is
Okay, that's a bit short example.
And as I don't know Python at all,
Okay.
just look into the code and see what the Keycloak container in Python does. I don't have any clue of Python. Yeah.
Okay. If somebody wants to show in another episode how the Python one works, please step up, and we will have you on the show here.
Yeah.
Good. Nice. So we have more questions that are coming in. Let's see. There was a question, how would you test an identity provider custom implementation? That might be getting in quite deep, right?
A custom identity provider implementation. Well, actually, you would need another container for the external identity provider. Because you somehow have to do the login and the communication of Keycloak with the external IDP. So you have to have another test container in your setup.
It could be a second Keycloak, right?
Maybe it depends on your implementation. If you want to implement a SAML or a OIDC provider, yes, then it could be Keycloak. If you want to implement some proprietary protocol,
Yeah,
it most likely will not be Keycloak. Yeah.
that's true.
And then, as already mentioned, if you want to test something with authentication, you will have to write some kind of UI tests with a framework which supports UI testing, and yeah, then you can deploy your custom IDP configuration in your Keycloak test container, having the test container from the external system. Hopefully, you can deploy it with a test container at the external system, and then you can use this. You can configure the external IDP in Keycloak in your test Keycloak, either through importing a pre-configured Realm JSON or through the admin client, and then testing the authentication itself.
Yeah. The good thing is that at least the login themes don't use so much JavaScript. So sometimes it's possible to test them using HTML unit if you're a Java person. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's beyond that, at least, when it comes to JavaScript. Pukul1337 was suggesting, did you ever consider creating a theme that makes it simpler to discover values on the login theme?
I think he's referring to this
XML expression that you use
to
this
figure out the XML expression. I have it here. No. Oh yes, I have it here in the Flintstones provider. Yes. I think it was. I think it was this one. Yeah. Yeah. Of course you can implement some minimal theme, but think about the effort of maintaining a simple theme just for testing purposes. I don't know if it's worth the effort. You have to decide it on yourself. I'm relying on the base theme and the HTML created by the base theme, and yeah.
Yeah, and it might even happen that you miss a breaking change by using a different theme than the original theme. Like maybe it would be good to really use the theme that you're using in production, or maybe even the custom theme you're using in production to really test that it works for you if you're writing an extension for yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
So for all the people who are interested in doing something like this for the regular login, in this extension demo repository in the various module, I think it is in the various module, I have, no, it's not in the various, it's in the utils. Yeah, I have the authorization code grant class, and here I'm mocking the UI through pure REST assured requests and responses.
Yeah. Okay.
Based on the base theme again, it's pretty similar to the first request we saw. But keep in mind that this flow I implemented here relies on the default authentication flow with just a username and password. If it comes to something like an OTP or some customized flow, this code most probably won't work anymore.
Okay, good. Yeah, there was the question about using an OAuth 2 client. So I had a demo about Depop at FOSDEM earlier this year, where I didn't then hard-coded or manually coded the OIDC interactions that you used here.
Yeah.
Back then I used the Nimbus OpenID Connect or OAuth 2 SDK for that. Do you have a favorite client for OpenID Connect?
No, I don't have a favorite client. My approach here was to use less third-party dependencies as possible. But yeah, why not? I know the Nimbus client is pretty well known and quite popular. So I'm open for some discussions or pull requests for using a pre-configured or a third-party client for doing some kind of this. But if somebody creates a pull request for this, keep in mind that it has always to be compatible to legacy versions, so that the users are not forced to use the Nimbus client from now on. So they can choose if they want to use the Nimbus client or if they want to use some custom approach.
Yeah, and I think with the current setup that you have, you don't stand in the way of those who want to use the Nimbus client today.
Yeah.
They could use the Nimbus client pointed to the discovery URLs of Keycloak and start using it without any additional changes needed to the test containers provider. Yeah. Dimitri from Cardiff, I believe, reaching out and asking, did you ever consider other methods of provisioning the realm? Like Keycloak admin CLI from Adosis, maybe, or what's your common way of configuring a realm? Is it importing it from a JSON using the admin CLI, or using what do you use mostly?
Yeah, for the tests, I'm using the JSON approach because in the test I just want to test the Keycloak extension. I don't want to test. I don't want to have additional dependency during my tests. In the production environments I'm doing with my customers, it depends on the environment of the customers. Some of my customers are relying plain on the JSON files. A lot of customers recently switched to the I always forget this name.
Terraform.
The Terraform provider, thanks.
Okay.
And I always forget this. The Terraform provider, and using this as configuration as code approach. Some of them used the Keycloak CLI from Adosis in the past. Yes. I personally, I have no favorite. I'm trying to support my customers with the tool they are most confident with. So if the customer is using a large Kubernetes environment and they have Terraform, so why they should introduce a new tool if they can just use the common tools.
Puka is asking one more question. Like maybe that's a question to sell test containers to your manager. Do you have information of time and effort saved compared to not using test containers?
When it comes to updates, I think by just increasing the version number, a few minutes later I have a result. Does it still compile? That's the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, does it compile? I can tell without the test container, but if it compiles and all the tests are still green, I have really good confidence and can say we save a real lot of time getting the extensions in production with the new version. I can't tell any numbers how much time you will save. It depends on the amount of extensions you're using, and it depends on the quality and amount of tests you implemented. Of course, implementing the tests is some effort you have to do, and it will slow down the initial implementation. But in all projects, I invested pretty much time implementing the tests. It really pays out later to have a good test base when it comes to updates, when it comes to refactorings, whatever.
And as a Keycloak maintainer, I would really love people to run their tests against Keycloak nightly. So if you run, then
this project also the extensions will be executed against nightly, and also the test containers I'm running each week against the nightly build. So the default test container is.
And to elaborate on that, like as Keycloak maintainers, we are releasing a major version, or no longer major versions, but minor versions now every 3 months.
Yeah.
And we want to know, we run a lot of tests, but maybe we're breaking a specific setup for some person out there in the world. And if you then have this setup with test containers, you can really run them, as Nico said, maybe once a week in your CI/CD pipeline. And if something breaks, give us feedback before we release the next minor version of Keycloak. That's so great. We love that. And then we can fix it in time.
So the default releases of the Keycloak test containers are not using nightly. So they're using a certain version. You can see the version used in the version table at the end of the README. So the current version 3.6 is using Keycloak 26.1. But as you can change the image used, and also with the image, the version, you can set it in your code to the nightly version. You can just if you
or
write
maybe
your
in
test,
a branch, or make it parameterized.
or make in parameterized in a branch. You can just for example use it here, the test container, and then say Keycloak nightly, and then you run against the nightly image.
And I would love that a lot, and to get feedback from people if we are then accidentally breaking their stuff, to get that feedback before we release. And maybe related to that, if you do the setup like this, I believe you can run it also on GitHub Actions as well as you're doing it.
Yes, of course. These weekly integration tests are running on GitHub Actions, as it is a a GitHub project. We have the actions, and you can see there's every Sunday morning there's running a CI build. Yeah.
Good. All right. Somebody was asking then to do where do I find good examples to extending SPIs? Where do I actually find docs about SPIs? It seems that you've done a lot of good share of extension development. What's your take on that question?
The documentation you can find on the developer guide of Keycloak. On the homepage you have the docs, and you have the server developer guide, and here you can see a documentation of some of the most used SPIs. These are not all the SPIs available, but some of the most used ones. For example, the authentication SPI, the event listener SPI, the user storage SPI are all described here. And there are a few good repositories out there providing some examples. So, for example, my Keycloak extensions demo repository. Always keep in mind, these are, like the word demo says, these are demos. They are not necessarily production ready, and they're just for demonstration purposes, showing what is possible in general. Don't use them one-on-one in your production environment. You're completely responsible on your own when using my code. You can use my code, of course. It is licensed through the Apache 2 license, same license as Keycloak is licensed. You can use my code as a starter. Of course, you can engage me to implement your extension, and yeah, but please don't use it as is in production.
And you showed earlier in on this call that a lot of extensions already use test containers. So if you browse through the list, you probably find examples.
Yeah.
There's also the Keycloak extensions page on the Keycloak homepage, which shows some more extensions. Yeah, it's linked from the community page. And we recently added some GitHub stars to that page. So each extension is listed with its GitHub stars in here. So you can have an idea what people are doing with Keycloak when writing extensions.
Here it is, test containers.
Test containers, yeah. And it sticks out with a lot of stars, which is great to see. Yeah, anything, I don't know, any nice story you want to share about as the last question or last answer on this call, like the most surprising thing that you hear from people where they used it? And you said maybe, oh no, don't use it like this, or what a great idea.
No, I never heard such stories, fortunately.
Okay, good. So it's always intended use, what you heard about it. That's good.
So long, yes. Yeah.
And then giving you stars, a lot of people are using it already, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going to the questions, somebody was suggesting customizing UI themes. Let's see if that's going to be one of our future stories on this one. Let's see what we don't do here. And if Francisco, you want to contact me, if maybe shaping that topic and getting it right, please reach out to me. And yeah, we are at the top of the hour almost. So I'd say thank you very much, Nico. It was great. It was wrong. It was great having you here.
You're welcome. A lot of fun, and thanks for the opportunity to present my test containers module. And hopefully all of you out there using the test containers from tomorrow on and test your Keycloak extensions.
It was great to have all these people here on the call. We have people from all over the world, and without your questions, it would only be half the fun and half the content. All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your day, or the rest of your night, wherever you are. See you next time. Bye.
See you. Bye bye.